Thank you, ma'am.
I did open one. That would be mine. I think they opened one.
This one?
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Sweet over there. There's 1,000 checks. Oh, wait, there is.
Mine was too. Sink all the time. That's what I thought. Seems like sometimes you can't avoid it.
I'm not going to count on that. I got my own here.
Figure out what changed in this case.
Just a little bit. You guys were in good?
Yeah, because it didn't match up. Okay.
That was good. Here. Could happen.
Somebody down there next to Sarah.
All right. Greg, call the USD 49 Board of Education meeting for Monday, October 24th to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, been moved by Board Member Waddell,
Second.
seconded by Board Member Rankin. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is the Best of the Best Awards presentation. The Best of the Best is designed to recognize those students or staff who go above and beyond in their day-to-day activities. They truly are exemplary in every way. The winners will receive a limestone plaque as well as a gift certificate from Gella's or Whiskey Creek. And they have been nominated by their peers, and our student Best of the Best winner this month is Isis Norris. Isis was nominated by Margaret Meyer, and I believe she is here to say a few words. No, I lied. Well, since she is not here, Isis, we do have a plaque for you up here, as well as the gift certificate. The other one, if you want to come forward here. And Juggling, you have to shake hands.
Congratulations.
And I do just want to share real quick for ISIS, basically Margaret's nomination, since she isn't here. I'll just read this to everybody. Isis is absolutely amazing and displays an immense amount of talent, determination, and poise. Isis is an officer at our Hayes Middle School Garden Club, and over the summer, Isis spent countless hours tending to our garden. Whether I was here or out of town, Isis has taken responsibility by helping the income. She's here. Right on. I'm going to let you finish then.
No, go ahead. That's good.
Okay. Whether she was here or out of town, Isis has taken responsibility by helping the incoming sixth graders get involved and displaying a positive attitude. She's gotten the garden club involved in the downtown Hayes Market, has grown food, and has been able to be used for the Hayes Middle School food pantry, and as well as devoting so many hours during the summer and during school to help the program be successful. I always say the students are more in charge of the program than I am. They are leaders through and through, and it will be very sad when they leave me to go on to high school. And that was from Margaret Meyer. So, thank you.
Mrs. Meyer, would you like a picture of Isis?
Yeah, do you want to say something?
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Margaret. Congratulations again to Isis. Our second Best of the Best winner this month is for our staff, and this month's winner is Carrie Basinger. Carrie was nominated by a long list of people: Kelly Riley, Mackenzie Flynn, Michelle Daniels, Linda Becker, and Marcy Lisman. And before I say this, I believe a few of them are here to say a few words. You guys can come forward.
I'm Mackenzie Flynn, and I work with Carrie out at Munger Daycare in Munger. And he's always willing to drop everything he has and help us ladies out with whatever we ask him to, get in water and holding the baby. So.
I have to pull it up on my phone here. I'm going to just read what I wrote in. There are so many reasons why Carrie is the best candidate for the October Best of the Best. He goes above and beyond his job description to take care of the staff, children, and the Munger building. We definitely do not see him as a custodian. He is part of our Munger family, and we do not know what we could do without him. He could be seen helping out in the classroom, holding a baby, or just stepping into the classroom so another staff person can take a child potty, or he goes outside and stands out there so that we have another staff person out there to help us with the kids. One huge task that he helps me with is he goes to Walmart with me and gets the Walmart diapers, and it's quite a task to go, we get a whole truck full of diapers and wipes, so he comes and helps me do that. So that's a huge task that he helps me with, which is awesome. The kids absolutely love them. They tell him hi every day, and they give him high fives. He's a very hardworking, dependable, and compassionate about his job here at Munger, and we appreciate everything he does.
And I'm Linda Becker. I'm one of the staff out there. And on my application, I put that he keeps our school and playground very clean and safe. He always makes himself available when we need something. He fixes toys. He makes toys. He saves us from giant spiders. Thank you, Carrie. He helps us with babies and toddlers when we need an extra hand. He takes time to talk to the kids and answers their thousands and thousands of questions. I've even seen him air up tires for parents so that they can make it back to Hayes safely. He gets snow and water for our sensory tables, cleans up all kinds of messes that we make when we use our sensory tables, and he's just part of our Munger family.
Thank you.
Thanks and congratulations again to Isis Norris and Carrie Basinger, and also want to thank Gellas and Whiskey Creek for their donations. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Not everybody at once. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is report of committees. John? No? Okay. I think we have any. That's an easy one. Next item on the agenda is communications from other organizations. And looks like we have the Wilson Garden Club presentation.
This is my PowerPoint. All right, let me get my stuff down there real quick. My name is Amy Jensen, and I am the kitchen manager at Wilson School. I started that job in 2010, and in 2011, my old boss, Sheila, if you remember Sheila, sent an email and said we could apply for this grant for a garden. And so I went to Mr. Mayor and was like, hey, what do you think? And he's like, we got tons of room, do whatever you want. So I was like, cool. So I applied for this grant and got denied. So then I was like, okay. So I kind of got pumped up about this a little bit because cucumbers are 75 cents a piece and we're going through 48 a week. And so I was kind of excited. So somebody told me about a Midwest Energy grant and I applied for that and received it. And my whole thing that I had asked for was for a fence. Well, once we got the money, people were like, well, that's not very much fence. What if you want to get bigger? So I called them up. They said, do whatever you want with the money. So we started buying seeds. And we did buy a fence, but it was one that we could take down and expand. So that was in 2012, the spring of 2012, we broke ground, which is what the poster is about. And I got some teachers on board, kindergarten, first and second grade. We all did something in their classrooms. We started seedlings and we kind of just did this and that. And then I took care of it over the summer with the help of my husband and the custodian, Tony Stegman. He was awesome. So for 2 years we did that. It was just kind of like keep it going. And we would use the food a little bit here and there. In 2013, we took radishes to the fair. That was still just kindergarten, first and second. And then Tony retired. So it was still just my husband and I and a few teachers that just could do it when they wanted. So then I applied for another grant. It was through the Kansas Department of Education, Nutrition and Wellness. And we got that. And they sent a big curriculum with it. So I was like, okay, so how am I going to get these teachers to go fit this in their schedule already? So Mr. Mayor and I thought about it, and so we were like, okay, how about a garden club? So we met on Tuesdays and Thursdays after school. That was actually just last year, last fall. But in 1 year, they give you 12 lessons, and a lot of it, you can work around. But we learned the parts of the plant. We learned what kinds of plants there are, like the leafy greens or the orange vegetables. We learned about how to wash our hands, about how to wash vegetables. We learned about germination. We learned how to save seeds, and we did. We saved cucumbers and carrot seeds that we had grown and let seed out ourselves. We carved pumpkins, and we made smoothies, and we did things like that. We had a special guest that taught us about honeybees, and we got to build a little robot. So then after that, we planted our own pollinator plot, which was just different flowers to attract bees. We learned about My Plate and the different food groups. We did farmer round math, which was if you take this much stuff to the farmer's market and this much stuff, how much money is it going to cost you per pound? So we also talked about doing a cookbook. We hadn't got that quite far yet. Everybody wanted to put banana bread in, we were trying to get fruits and vegetables in our cookbook. But, so we're still working on that. So this actual year, is the second year of the garden club. Last year we had about 15 kids, now we have about 30, and it's gotten quite big. But this year, actually, if I backtrack, a parent donated some raised beds last year that they made themselves, and Home and School, which Ethan's mom is the president, helped donate soil to put in it. So we have doubled in size. It's like 20 by 40. And since school has started, this is the first week that I've ordered cucumbers. We've picked over 450 cucumbers in our little garden. We've also served tomatoes at least 4 times a week that came from our garden. We served onions, carrots, eggplant, radishes. They eat radishes like crazy because they planted them. Like, that's where I found out that if they plant it, they will eat it. And I just really think that, or they'll try it. They might not eat it, but they will try it. So just this year in our garden, which is we're still picking tomatoes and eggplants. The cucumbers are done. We still have peppers. And we've since planted kale, broccoli. The broccoli isn't going to make it though. But we tried. And we also have a little hoop house that we're going to cover when it gets colder that we built ourselves also last year. But this year, I'll let him introduce himself, but he's one of the garden club members, and he's going to tell you a little about what we're doing this year.
My name is Ethan Davis. I'm in the 4th grade at Western Elementary School. I enjoy garden club because it is fun. You get to plant stuff and stuff. You get to watch it grow, and you get to eat the vegetables that we plant. We are also working on a milk carton box. We are learning baseball out of recycling. All the milk cartons are cleaned out before use. The cans came out and fixed the page of the book. We are using hot glue to glue them. Once the chalk is lifted up, then we can the paint to paint or color. We are building the truck in oil and glue. If we win, we will get $5,000 for the house. If we win the money, then we fix
Our fence is kind of old and been twisted up, but good job, Ethan. Yeah, so we're getting ready to wind down for a couple months over the winter, but our truck contest is ending November 18th, and we'll probably send out emails because there's a voting where all our friends and family and everyone we know can vote for us. So, thank you.
That's awesome.
If there's any questions, I guess we didn't leave that open.
Are you going to continue your involvement?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, indeed.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
For sure.
That's awesome.
For sure.
Good or bad? Next item on the agenda is school spotlights. I believe Superintendent Thistle has some.
Yes, the exciting part is we do end up having some items such as the announcement of the master teacher nominees. Some of those nominees, we have them identified by the school, but the nominees are Jenny Prine, Renee Burns, Suzanne Lycum, Tracy Rowe Archer, Ted Foster, Dan Ballman, and Lacey Key. So it's wonderful to end up having them identified as the nominees for the 2016-2017 school year. Another item ends up being cross-country. Really amazing. Our middle school 8th grade girls doing so well. They ended up having first place in league. As a team, they did just a fantastic job. And we end up having, the boys did a fine job as well, but especially one individual who ended up winning the cross-country championship, Dawson Von Feld. So both boys and girls did a spectacular job this year with that. It's exciting to be able to talk on that. Another item had to do with the high school girls golf team. 11 years straight being able to go, for them to end up getting second place at Ulysses was quite exciting as well. So they'll be, we'll end up seeing. They've just continued to do an excellent job, and we'll just see here how they end the year at this point. So those are items that just want to point out and spotlight. A little bit more information you could read on, but that's pretty much the highlight of those particular items.
Great. Any questions for John on school spotlights? Next item is also John, and he'll go over report of the superintendent.
I have a few items. They're short. I wanted to end up making sure the board was aware that with help of a student at the high school, which was great, we ended up getting together behind me ends up being the goals, the mission and the goals, and we are going to duplicate that for every building that we have. So at least in the entryway or the office, we will have identified the mission and goals, and that will be displayed, and that should happen quite quickly in the next week, or I believe. So that's one item. Another item is nice that Victory Road, as far as working with the dioceses, okay, we end up having them working for a memorandum of understanding, which ended up being the simple front end of this. Mandy was able to attend that. Was there an update of it as far as discussion?
Basically, Tim Flax just talked about the discussions that have gone on when he's attended the board meetings and the other ones that have gone on behind the scenes, and that this was basically the first step, and that there would be more formal agreements that would come into place as whose roles, responsibilities, liabilities, those type of things come into this. He had nothing but positive things to say about working with the board, and I reciprocated that it's been a very amicable relationship, and that we feel like we're all making forward progress. So
yeah, we have a signed memorandum of understanding.
Yeah.
So as far as that first step of having that, which is the simplest, we have another meeting next week where we'll be meeting with Tim Flax, Chad, Lance, myself, and we'll be talking as far as more of the details behind that. We're really looking at this point, the details is as well trying to put some repairs to that road at this point, and have some ideas already, but working on it.
Tim even made the statement that, the children's safety and easy access for loading and unloading children is the most important thing. So it wasn't like they were wanting to reduce our use or anything like that. They realized that the kids' safety is very important, and it's crucial to our drop-off and pickup system right now. So.
Very good. That was really it on it. It's nice to end up having the steps that's already been taken. I'm excited to see. Our meetings have been very productive.
It's nice to have some open dialogue and moving forward, and they seem interested in wanting to do additional to try to make the partnership, I guess, if you will. So.
And part of that, too, just to share, part of it was not a matter of being strapped to this idea of a wait time and dependency upon a bond issue to pass to end up having any repair to that. This is separate from that, of really tending to it and making sure that time-wise there's something that's much more current, maybe even this summer, that can be done in trying to make some real changes to that and make it a safer road.
And they did get a use of Victory Road this week because our girls' volleyball team made the state. So.
Good. Okay. The next item, I had wanted to talk to the board briefly about excitement that we don't want to have in schools, and that's our lockdown last Thursday. Just a little bit of update on it. Most individuals may be aware of that, but I would share with you that there's been 3 others that were almost, as far as things that's happened in the community, and conversation with the police on whether or not, whether or not there's an need to end up warrant a lockdown at this particular point. because of activity that's going on in the community. It always raises some concern, as far as saying, well, it's just a matter of saying the location and the time, where is this happening, what's actually going on. The fact is, from the school standpoint, we're not really given nor asking what's going on. We are told by the police as to, we are telling you at this point that you need to be in a lockdown mode. And that's basically what happened last Thursday with O'Laughlin. There was a situation that was going on in the community close to that particular school. And at that point, we went ahead and contacted the emergency steps of contacting parents. And the timing, too, is so critical. It's a lot different if it's 9 in the morning or if it's 1 in the afternoon, but when you're looking at within 30 minutes of releasing school, that really does create a lot of anxiety as to how do you get this communicated and take care of it. I think things went well in many ways, but it did create some questions that we've had several meetings since then, meetings for our own staff here at Rockwell, meetings at the school. We'll end up having another item to talk about with all principals at our next principal meeting. I met with the chief of police today about some items as far as the interaction between the police as well as the school or Rockwell. And I'll go into a little bit more depth in that. One of the items that was really unaware of by the chief is the issue is a lockdown's a lockdown many times in their mind. In our mind, we have protocol that can be different kinds of lockdown. You can have lockdown where there's no direct threat to a school. It's just that an area is, they could have a chase. There could be something going on that is just a little scary in that particular area and say, but not a direct threat to the school in any way, but still we could be on lockdown. We might call it a soft lockdown. So you make sure all the doors are locked, you have the students in the building, you even lock the doors perhaps to the classrooms, but you still teach. You're still able to have a productive day or 30 minutes or hour, whatever that is. Now, if you're talking about a hard lockdown, that's the real scary situation where basically nothing really is worked on during that time because you're trying to just keep the students calm, safe, and trying to work with the police in enough information to discern which is that and what are we working from. And there were other items that were in question as far as we are able to contact the parents, and that was done, but it also is a matter that we have that ability to quickly make a contact, whether it's text, email, phone call, all done at the same time for all these parents, but we realize that no matter which building or all buildings or any two buildings, there's still a group that needs to be contacted all the time. One is transportation. Should have been, those people need to be identified because we end up having, we have bus drivers through the day, not just beginning and the end of the day, and they need to know what's happening. We end up having psychologists and other personnel that move from building to building. We have principals in every building should at least know what's going on district-wide, so we included the principals. Board members, it's a good way for them to quickly hear. Staff within the building, it may be redundant because they may be hearing it on the intercom, but then they'd also maybe get a text message too. These are all things that were kind of added to how our system would be, and there's more questions to work on. We had a safety meeting, a pre-safety meeting last week before Thursday to set our first safety meeting, which deals with this, with our crisis plan, and that's coming up in November. So I'm sure that there'll be some of the discussion on this as well. But no, it's interesting in that conversation because our social media is so good in one way of getting word out there that you can have a situation occur, and it's happened 3 times other than O'Loughlin's, where we get contacted, Sarah or someone, and then the guy get pulled into it of saying, should we be in lockdown at this particular school because something's going on somewhere close? I call the police department, talk to the assistant chief or the chief, and feel a little awkward because the idea is they're supposed to contact us. I'm not supposed to be saying, hey, should we? And the issue there is, in those particular cases, the answer was no. You know, we really are okay. It's not a matter, it may have that view that there should be a threat, but it is the police that makes that determination if they feel that the school is threatened at that point, and they will let us know. So it's a matter of that relationship and faith in the police as well as the school and working that, and had a very good meeting with Chief today, and I know we're going to be talking more as far as he's going to he needs to meet with his staff, his police officers, on a couple of the items that we talked about as well, and I will be doing the same with our principals and our staff, and I think that's what this is about, is trying to make it as good a system as possible. Also knowing that when we talk, Don and I were talking about all the circumstances depending, every one of them is so flexible because you can throw in another factor that really kind of changes things too. Having something hard and fast, just as we were saying, well, should Rockwell be the first place contacted or the only place contacted, and then we will end up letting the schools know or identify that? Well, that sounds good, but what if? What if the police officer's close to a school and it is definitely a very serious situation right then, right at that location? Certainly they should call the school first. You know, and now they could still call Rockwell and let this office know so we can inform everyone else, the transportation, the parents, we do that. But every situation can end up making it just a bit different on how you need to react to it. But if you have questions, I'd like to answer it, but that's kind of a roll of what's happened since last Thursday. And there's no doubt, it does complicate it greatly when it's the very beginning of the school or the very end of school. You know, it's as far as trying to it complicates it. So, okay.
Thank you, sir.
And maybe the last item that I wanted to share is just a matter that we did end up having a little bit of unfortunate news, a lot, in the last few weeks is believing that we had a handle of sorts, still was over $300,000 of increased health insurance costs for this coming year, and that was something we knew, but there was some other things that came to us recently that we did not know at an earlier point, which has increased it to well over $500,000.
And those came after negotiations were already
It came
completed.
after. It certainly did. And so it complicates it, just an awareness that for us, we certainly aren't getting more money to run this school this year. But you know, that's just health insurance. Health insurance over $500,000 more is what we're having to dedicate this coming year for Hayes Schools. Any questions? Then I am finished.
And John, I believe the one increase was the dental increase was another one that came up, and what was the other one?
That had to do the retiree.
The retiree, which
Yeah,
which
we
went up
didn't
another-
have that number ahead of
Yeah.
time, and it's still really troubling that it was so different than the other. I mean, it went from $500 and some dollars to $900 and some dollars for the retiree.
And that was an additional like 80 or 90,000, correct?
I'm sorry?
That was an additional 80 or 90,000
Yeah.
just for retiree health
Yeah.
insurance.
Will Tracy be walking us through these slides?
Yeah, she has some details
Yeah.
at the next, yeah.
Very good. Thanks, John. Next item on the agenda is the financial report, and we'll let Tracy go through that.
I only have a couple of items I'd like to point out. as far as exceptions. On page 6, under the State Early Head Start Fund, you will see that we are looking over budget there. There was an adjustment to the salary allocation after the start of the year. We've found that, we've got it all corrected, so you'll be seeing that next month. But it is showing over budget in the month of September, so we'll have that corrected in October. And on page 8, under the ECBG Quality Award, we're a little bit, $71 over budget. Dana is going to be checking to make sure that invoice is correct, if we really are $71. It was for the child care for parents and children together class. Then that will obviously be absorbed somewhere else in the grant. September was the first month that we had all salaries coming out. All the teachers and 9 and 10 month staff were paid in September. We're under budget on all the salaries and looking very good. We have expended 16.44% of the entire budget, so we're growing that gap between what we have spent so far and what's allowable. We allowed almost 24% through the month of September. And on the health insurance that John mentioned, as many of you were aware, January 1st, our employee health insurance, the employee costs, are increasing 9%. There's also multiple changes to the deductible, prescriptions, other things that affect the employees. Our district does pay 100% of the employee cost for employee only, instead of 95%, which is required by the state. So the cost for us as a district will be $19,500 for January through June of 2017 that we did not have budgeted. Then July 1st is when the employer health insurance rates go up, and they had told us previously they would be increasing 7%. Once I got all the final numbers together, the total cost of the increase for the 2018-19 school year is $393,000. That is for the employer and the small part of the employee cost that we will pay.
What percentage increase is that compared to the 7% that
It is about 7%, but all I had before to estimate on was this is the total amount we spend, and then once I received the actual cost for single, cost for spouse and independents, then I was able to calculate the exact amount that it would be according to the numbers that we had enrolled in health insurance at that time.
So with that figure being different, because I think we were ballparking about $354,000, if I remember right on the other one, our increase then, if I'm adding that, we're up close to $575,000, $580,000 in health insurance increases.
Yep, I'll give you a little bit more detail here in just a second. Okay. That's just on the health insurance, the medical side. And then what John alluded to, what we found out recently, was the retiree health insurance. January 1st is going from $638 to $975 a month. In 2012-13, it was capped at the district's maximum contribution of $575. But prior to that, the district did pay 100% of the retiree health insurance. So we still have 81 retirees that are eligible for the district to pay the full premium. Most of them will be coming off due to age in 3 to 5 years, but we do have some individuals that will have 7 years worth of paid insurance. So we do have a continued risk of increasing costs for the district for the next 7 years. So next year, for 2017, the annual cost of the retiree health insurance that the district will have to pay is $96,000. Half of that from January to June is $48,000 that we did not have budgeted. The total cost over the 7 years is $299,000. We are contracted with the state health plan beginning January 1 for the next 3 years, and the total cost over those 3 years is $221,000 if the rates don't change at all going forward. So to kind of add it all up for you, Lance. Oh, and also, we also recently found out that I did not have on the slides was the district will be having an increase of $12 a month for dental insurance for all employees. The total of that will be $77,000 for next year. So when we add the dental, the medical, and the retiree, it's going to be $566,000 additional cost that we have in the 2017-18 school year.
And the state plan could raise their premiums each year,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Are there any other questions on the insurance?
Next time, can you bring better news?
I know, I'm not liking to be the bearer of bad news.
Thank you, Tracy. Any other questions for Tracy on the financial aspect? Seeing none, I'll move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda, to include the board meeting minutes for September 26, 2016, board meeting and work session minutes for October 10, 2016, special board meeting minutes for October 17, 2016, the financial report to include the clerk's report, investment report, and petty cash report, personnel transactions, the approval of bills in the amount of $2,663,299.53. And that looks like that's it.
So moved.
Okay. Been moved by Board Member Waddell and seconded by Board Member Fox. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. On to new business. Next item on the agenda is the transportation purchase, and this is basically to vote to approve the purchase of the 2 Suburbans and 2 buses, and I believe Russ kind of went over there at the work session, but
Yeah, we went over this 2 weeks ago at the work session, talked about our fleet of vehicles, our fleet of buses, and our 5-year plan for continue to upgrade our fleet. So what we're looking for tonight, purchasing 2 Suburbans for $77,904.50, a route bus for Midwest Transit for $90,690, a wheelchair bus for Midwest Transit at $96,931, for a total of $265,525.50. Our budget is $304,000, so we are under budget. And then all pricing is part of the Kansas State bid and bus contracting.
thank you, Russ.
I would make a motion to accept the bids for the buses and vehicles needed for district transportation.
Okay, been moved by Board Member Waddell,
Second.
seconded by Board Member Adams. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thanks, Russ.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Hayes High School roof storm repair bid.
I'll speak on that. Rusty's at a conference and will be there for another day or two. I want to end up sharing that comments made by me last at the work session that we had. I wanted to clarify. I said 2 different things as far as the work that was done on this particular building, the roof here and the roof on west side. I ended up stating that it was a 10-year warranty. It was a 20. I want to clarify that. So it was a 20-year warranty. Also made comment as far as it being less than, but being less than, that's not necessarily true. It may have been the least expensive, but still it was a 20-year warranty. So it was done to end up lasting on this. To end up talking about the high school's project, really not much has changed from what was described at the last meeting. We're in a position of trying to end up getting 2 different projects that are adjacent worked on there for the high school. What work you end up seeing, they've kind of staged for the first project of it as well, and that's what we're talking about, the second piece. And that would be the storm damage piece.
And John, insurance will cover a portion of that, correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
We have a motion to approve the roof storm repair bid.
I'll move to approve the low bid from Roof Masters in the amount of $28,857.
Second.
Okay. Been moved by Board Member Adams and seconded by Board Member Waddell. Any further discussion? And I might add, it looks like financial consideration, I'm assuming, minus the insurance, is actually $16,979, so won't be quite that.
Regarding the insurance coverage, do they only spend up to a certain portion, or why was it only half of the damage?
It's not identified that way. They come and actually do a view. They come and look at it, and they make the determination, which I would say we, talking to Rusty, been a little bit less than happy how that was actually done. But that's how it was done, as far as them making that determination. It's not set as
Okay.
far as,
I don't
There's
know.
no set amount that they're.
yeah, there was
Okay.
not a set amount.
Have we had any other, because I know we spent a lot of time last year, or was it over a year ago? We were talking about the insurance that we were going to go with and our deductible amounts and that sort of thing, so.
Right. Actually, it's interesting you say that because Tracy and I have had the conversation with that particular service provider, and it linked to that. We were able to share a little bit of dissatisfaction as to how that occurred. So that process has already happened as far as being able to share that. Not that there's any quick answer to it, but a matter of the process has started. So,
Can I elaborate on that also, please? We are very pleased with Kermit and with Assurance Partners.
Right.
It is the company that is processing our claims that we have had some issues with. We are going to be addressing that in our Kermit meeting next month, and consider possibly even changing companies if it comes to that. But that's where our dissatisfaction has been, is with the company that's actually processing the claims.
who has a very similar name.
Gallagher Bassett.
Yeah.
So, what we're replacing is 100% storm damage, though. Is that correct? Or are we going a little bit farther to make the system tie in?
Oh, you're right. It is to tie in. It's further, so it will tie in. Thank you for mentioning that, Josh.
So their adjustment was based
Right.
on the storm damage.
All right.
But we're going a little bit farther to make the system tie in and be congruent with
Thank
it,
you.
so-
You're right.
Okay.
Okay, so our impact of the 16,979 is giving us something beyond what was
Damage.
damaged.
That's correct.
All right, okay, that makes me feel better.
When I was typing up the cover sheet, Rusty did say that we're getting twice the amount of roof for pretty much the same cost of what it would be for that original portion that was damaged in the storm.
That clarifies it.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is the Hayes High School HVAC request for proposal.
Very pleased to have Dwayne here this evening to be able to go through that document that was sent to us and look over it. I'll let him go ahead and take the floor and share with us any of the details with that particular request for proposal.
Thank you, John. My name is Dwayne Vaughn. I'm the owner of Integrated Consulting Engineers. We're out of Wichita, and we were hired. Feels like it's been a little bit longer than that, but I think first part of October to work with the district and Rusty in particular to come up with a request for proposal. And I believe Lance and Sarah have been to a couple of the meetings. I know John sat in on a few of them. And you'll have to forgive me for, well, two things. One is I only brought 7 copies of an additional item I need to hand out. I'm going to blame Rusty for that. The second item is I don't know whether it's appropriate for me now to request that you approve this tonight or not, but I think ultimately that's where we want to get. So in the board packet was a copy of the Hayes High School request for proposals. That is essentially a final copy. I think I corrected a spelling error or two, but other than that, what you have in your packet is exactly what I have up here and would recommend we send out. I do just want to clarify a few items, though. The actual title, in lieu of Hayes High School HVAC request for proposal, is the request for proposals for a strategic facilities improvement program. And I point that out only because the goal is not to make this specific to one particular facility in this district. The goal was to send this out, and we're requesting a partner for the district for all the facilities in the district. Now, there has been discussion, and as I mentioned, Lance and Sarah and John have been in on some of these. At this point, it does appear that the facility that needs the most work is the high school. And I've got some numbers. I wish Rusty was here tonight, but I'll share these with you. From July 1st, 2016 to September 22nd, 2016, which I hope is 55 days, Rusty received 135 HVAC repair tickets. Now, 22 of those 135 tickets were associated with warranty items at the middle school. They were, a thermostat not working or something like that. They were all items that were addressed very quickly. The remaining 113 items were all on the high school, or excuse me, were the rest of the facilities. Of the 113 HVAC tickets, the high school had 57 of them. So slightly over 50% of the HVAC tickets, HVAC issues that Rusty has to address are related to the high school. So while it's not specific to the high school, I think it's kind of accepted, unless someone comes in and proves differently, that the high school might be the first place to look. But part of the request is for them to come in and work with you, again, as a partner, to help you establish your priorities, to help you establish whether, O'Laughlin, for example, needs, the HVAC system at O'Laughlin is in worse shape than the system at the high school. I'd also point out that this is not a contract at this point. You are actually just requesting proposals. I do have a schedule I put together on this that I tried to work with the board meetings, and it's on page 4, I believe, of the RFP in your handout. The review of the RFP would be tonight. We would like to issue the RFP tomorrow, if at all possible. I do need to, I need to make sure that we need to advertise this, so I want to make sure that we're doing everything we need to do with that. And I don't know if I need to read through the rest of these, but the mandatory pre-proposal meeting, we would ask that anybody respond to this comes and spend some time walking through your facilities. We've given them roughly a week to submit questions, given me roughly a week to respond to questions, and then the final submission would be November 29th. At that point, we've left it open in here whether we want to interview, depending on how many submissions we get, whether we want to narrow it down and then conduct an interview process. But the goal would be to have a firm selected by the middle of December. The ultimate goal being that we get someone on board the first part of the year, so that if any work does get done next summer, that gives everybody time to get their ducks in a row.
Dwayne, there was, since the board had this for a little while to look over, there was only 2 areas that I had board members contact me and ask about. One had to do with the schedule, so thank you for sharing that. And I was telling them the schedule was put together by just looking at what is possible with board meetings that do exist, not about being so bold to say this is definitely the schedule and this is what we're going with. So I did share that already with them.
Okay.
We were wanting something that could be put in place and be looking at maybe working from this into the next semester. And that was my answer to them. So, and you kind of just answered that as well.
Yes, correct.
But the other one that came up, if you could elaborate more, was in section 2 and 3. In 2 for the scope of services, and also in 3, which is term, there is a question as far as, is that information there so specific that it will limit tremendously individuals who can actually want to be part of this? That was
the question?
That was the question. Of reading through that, is it so limiting that basically we would only be able to get 1 or 2 individuals that would be even able to share interest?
I don't believe that's the case. I mean, I can come up with more than 1 or 2. I guess I'm a little, I question how that was brought up, only because I want to make sure I answer it correctly. I don't believe that's the case. We are asking for, and I've got, sorry, I don't mean to jump around on you.
Well, and it was my question.
It was your
It was my
question.
question, because, we were in that meeting, and so I understand the capabilities that are possible through BCS.
Correct.
Then when I read this, and granted, I didn't read all of it, but just in that section, sort of the second paragraph, and then under the term, it just seemed very specific, and not knowing the players in this arena, I wanted to make sure that when we send this, issue this RFP and advertise it appropriately, that we will have multiple, not just one or two that
Correct.
are so specific
Responding.
to this.
Okay, so maybe rather than answer those two specific questions, maybe let me, let me jump forward, and since not everyone was here, but Lance and Sarah, and I think, John, you saw part of the presentation.
Right.
And I won't hand this out, but does everybody remember the little circle they showed us about the 4 different quadrants? Okay, so that is BCS's solution. Okay, so their method of doing this, providing, and that's the advanced, if you go to the very end of this, what really you're asking me about, I think, is the advanced solutions portion of this. That is BCS's method of handling this. Now, a Train, for example, or someone like that may have a different method of handling this. If you'll remember when we did that presentation or when we sat through that, we talked specifically about we weren't buying software, we were buying solutions.
Right.
This is part of the software that they would use to help you prioritize your needs. That is probably a software that's specific to BCS in that particular case. Train may use a different method. So I haven't told them, and I have in the advanced solutions part of this at the very end, maybe one more, I'm sorry, 2 more.
Yeah, which page are you on?
Yeah, let me look it up, sorry.
Because perhaps I didn't.
I'm looking at 2 different places.
Yeah, and while he's looking at that,
I
let me,
apologize. Okay, I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
let me
Go
just
ahead.
share, while he's looking at that, Sarah, you would not know, but Rusty, the conference that he's at, he is going to a train section, he did today, to end up finding out the tool that Train ends up using that would be similar to what was shown to us.
Okay.
So what Dwayne is explaining is at least Train would end up having something that is, both Rusty and I did talk and believe that there are even 2 others that have such capability too. So we had counted up maybe 4 different companies that have the capability that kind of tie into this and could be considered. I think that's a reasonable number, is probably about 4.
I only brought 7, but the reason I'm
There's
not...
only 6 board members here.
Okay.
So
Can I hand these out?
that
Yep,
would work.
Absolutely.
I don't know where to start. Start here, take one, pass it down over here. Yeah. The reason, I can speak while I'm handing it, do you mind just passing it?
Sure, sure.
The reason that it's not in there, Sarah, is I've been working with Rusty at the same time. As part of this request, the 2 items that you're going to get, these would go out as attachments to this, and they did not make the board packet. One is square footage of district buildings, and this was to be issued in this packet. It lists your different facilities, it lists the square footage, and then someone in the district keeps track of all your gas and electricity bills or utility bills. And Rusty ran copies of all those for the past 2 years, and someone's going to ask that question. So this was to be issued in an effort to head off that question. The other thing that I worked with Rusty on is, and whether it be the bond issue, this RFP, we just started to create a standards of materials for the district. And this is just to set a guideline for, whether it be toilets. We like automatic flush toilets instead of manual flush toilets, for example. This is not necessarily specific to the RFP. It was just an effort to get on paper the things that are common within the district, and particularly the things that Rusty likes to deal with. So when you asked me about that, and I kept trying to find it in that RFP, the advanced solutions is in the back of this. It's on the last 3 pages, I believe. Everything in here is open source. There's nothing proprietary about it. Now, BCS's delivery method may be proprietary since we're using them as an example. It might be proprietary to BCS. but Train has the ability to do this exact same stuff. It may be a green widget instead of a red widget, for example, and I'm making that up as an example. You're actually not buying the software from any of these companies. You're buying the solutions that software gives you.
Right, okay,
So
okay.
I don't know if I completely missed that question or if I did okay in answering it, so. I don't feel that any of this is specifically written around. In fact, if you go through this standards, you'll see that for a lot of the equipment, there is a preferred rooftop manufacturer in the district, for example, and it happens to be Aon, but we've listed equals by Daikin or Train. So as you go through this document, and I do apologize, it was not in your packet, it was kind of being worked on. But there are multiple manufacturers listed in this standards for materials.
So the way that this is written now, what can we expect in terms of responses for this RFP? Do you have any idea?
I think you get at least 3 I'm solid on. I could think you might get up to 5.
Okay,
So I think you'll see at least 3 responses.
all right.
Let me help with this.
Mhm.
If, Sarah, if we do not, if it ended up being a situation where there was one, it's an RFP. It's something that we can come back and discuss. If we have concerns that for some reason we only got one, we could come back and it kind of puts us in a mode of rethinking everything. It's not a contract. We're not in that position at this point. We're just sending it out to see who's interested. So it's one of those cases where, as far as steps go, it'd be very interesting to find out if it is 3 or 5. But if it did come back just one, yeah, it probably warrant us to meet and discuss how come there's only one that's interested at this particular
And
point.
thank you for, clarifying that. That's what I meant when I said you're not approving a contract tonight. I mean, all we're really asking for is the approval to issue the RFP. You are not committing to anything. That's the schedule we've come up with. I guess that's a schedule that will go out, but as we have meetings with whoever responds, we can change the schedule. That's the question and answer period that's built into that.
Okay. And
So-
another question I have is the means that we should be using to issue and advertise the RFP, will that reach all of the companies that we hope to attract?
Most of the companies that you're looking to attract, I'm going to say, have little search engines that they fire up every day, for lack of a way of getting really technical.
Okay.
They'll see these board minutes tonight.
Okay.
So I think so. Now, as far as where you want to advertise it, that is actually one of my questions. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to talk to Rusty today, but, and that may be a question, John, that I need to get with you on, but I don't know what the proper procedure is for advertising. I believe you need to do it locally.
Right.
So,
And Rusty and I definitely are guilty of that schedule to a large part, because part of having the schedule as it is was trying to put something together that even in the fast track of it has possibilities. Not that we're forcing it, that this could happen next summer, but we didn't want to end up lagging on this, so that even at whatever pace, there's no way we could even get started this summer in the consideration of working on the high school. This schedule exists so that it is a possibility, that is an option still at this point, that the high school could be considered to start working on this summer. That's why this schedule is as it is.
Bill, is there a way also, just based off some of the other RFPs where we sent out, like in the past with the HVAC type systems, to where if we would only, for sake of argument, get one or the other one there, that we can keep the figures from their prices from becoming public? That way we don't put them at a disadvantage if this has to be put back out again?
Once you receive and open those bids, they're public record.
So if we were to only get one, as long as we did not open that technically, then we could go back to the table and...
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think, because in the past, that was,
Yeah.
I don't, at least the vendors then are not left exposed. So,
and
okay.
again, not to beat it to death, but as far as the request for proposal, you won't get any numbers.
Okay.
You're just going to get, it's almost a request for qualifications, but we've stated what we want them to be able to do.
Right.
So you're going to select an entity or a firm to work with you, and you will move forward from that point, developing the project.
So this is an RFP for an entity.
Yes.
So this
You were
isn't gonna
asking
be-
for...
This isn't going to be a competitive bid for the system and all of it.
No. No, it's not.
This is for a company to work with moving forward.
Yes, that is correct.
So therefore,
So-
there are no,
Yeah,
there
I mean...
wouldn't be any envelopes to open up with dollar signs.
That's true, if that's the case.
That's where I was confused here for a second.
No,
This is just for
you're
a-
correct. That's absolutely correct. You're going to get a packet of paper with qualifications, and here's the equipment we may rep, and here's the services we may be able to provide, and here's all our references. And then at that point, we need to find a way through the middle of it. If, like I said, we've left it open for interviews. If you get 5, you want to narrow it down to 3. But yeah, there will be nothing to open. That is a correct statement.
Now, for curiosity's sake, help me understand why that path is best for the school district. Why would you not have everything put together on what you can do and all of your costs associated with, and then narrow it down to...
Make a decision.
It seems like you take part of the competitive edge out of that.
The tools today, as opposed to I mean, if you had a project identified, and we'll just use the high school, for example, if that is the project you want to do, and if you know you want that project to be, I believe it's a heat pump system now. I know you don't want to go back that way, but let's just say that you want a heat pump system in the high school. You could send out a request, or you could design it and send that out and bid it and open the bids and take the low bidder. But I don't even know that I don't know that you've identified exactly what all of the projects are. So this is a request to get someone to come in and utilizing these tools like these advanced solutions, these utility bill monitors, doing energy analysis of your buildings, helping you to determine what the next project might be.
So
And once you determine your project needs and priorities,
Yes.
then you move back towards the competitive side.
Yes, that is correct.
And I understood, I just wanted that
Yes.
to be...
No, I
to be
appreciate that,
stated.
because I don't want to leave anything out. But yes, that's correct. At that point, it would more than likely, depending on how you want to, there's so many different ways to move forward. There's construction management, there's negotiated, but a planned spec and bid is also an option. So yes, that's when you get back into the competitive part.
I guess my other question would be then too, with this, if that's the case, putting this out, I'd be willing to bet they're probably not going to do this service for free. So there's going to be some sort of cost associated with this based on what these companies are going to charge to do that.
Yes.
So then if that's the case, how are we not going to see numbers?
Because you're just asking them essentially for qualifications and making sure that they have that at this point.
And there's still then the interviews, and there's the process that we get the numbers
Kind of.
after that. I mean,
So we're going to send out one after this then again,
Yeah.
basically, to get
Yeah.
the numbers.
Yeah, where this is just a pre-step to what you're familiar with is the bids, you know, it ends up being. And just to try to clarify again, this process is cumbersome in some way. It's a little bit irritating in one way, because it could be all balled together and would be balled together in an architectural plan for a bond election. But in our conversations at an earlier point, we've identified that there are items that exist in our capital outlay process that needs to be considered quite separate and a different pathway than the bond election, because the bond election has it's something that's out there that may not happen. But we do have control of our capital outlay money. And this is an area that we have more control of. It's more time. It's almost time that you would be working on, and maybe 6 months down the road or something else we're going to be doing that's going, well, my goodness, this could have taken care of that. Well, yeah, it could have, but not in the timeliness of what we're working on, and not with the guarantee of follow-through, because the guarantee of follow-through does not exist with the bond election, but it does with our capital outlay money. And that's why we're on this path right now.
He did much better than I would have done.
No, and I appreciate, like I said, part of the reason, like I said, we just, I guess, wanting to make sure we've done it just because of some of the issues we had in the past going forward with some of these. We're
Sure.
just wanting to make sure that everything is all answered and
I
put on the table,
understand.
so there's no surprises.
And
There's
just,
been some conversations that
Yes.
have gone, not everybody has heard everything, so.
Right.
Sometimes we ask questions to make sure that everybody understands what's going
I
on.
appreciate that. This industry, and I noticed, I recognize you, I'm sorry, Navels is here. This industry's changing drastically. I've been doing this for 24 years, so I'm specific to the HVAC and plumbing side, but this industry's changing drastically, and software's leading the charge. And so I say you're not buying software, you're not. But these are tools I don't have available. I did not have available to me as short as 5 years ago. So that's kind of why you see a shift of, kind of why you're seeing things tend, I guess, I hope this is a correct statement, it's my opinion, that you're seeing things to veer away from the typical architect, engineer, plan spec market. So, but I think this is a safe way to go about it. I think it manages your risk. I think it allows you to select an entity that you're comfortable working with, and I think that's the most important part of this RFP at this point, is someone you can trust as your best interest at heart or in mind.
So the actual request tonight then, just so we're clear.
Is to be able to send out this RFP and find out who has interest.
Okay. So it's a
not-
motion to approve this RFP to be distributed.
To distribute out, and yeah.
Okay.
And we're looking at this basically to help us determine how to spend our existing capital outlay budget, not necessarily to add, like, I guess my biggest concern is I'm looking at the expenses we have in capital outlay. And so when we talk about it, I'm looking at one more payment, one more something else. But this could help us prioritize. It doesn't have to be big projects. Is that what you're saying? It could
Right.
be just smaller.
It ends up, exactly. It also ends up being, just because we're moving this way, and even if you do vote to say yes to this tonight, does not mean that we have to stick to the schedule that was identified. It also does not mean that we have to end up starting a project at the high school with its heating and air this next summer. But it does keep it in the reality area that it's still an option, that it could be done. And as far as money goes, that has to be considered. How are we going to pay for it? Is there money there? Does it need to be a year project, a 2-year project? How are we going to be able to finance this, even with capital outlay money?
And
One of
I think
the,
I
I'm sorry, go
shared-
ahead.
I shared this in a prior meeting, but what was telling to me was some of the statistics that he shared with us tonight about the number of tickets that Rusty responds to since July 1st, so only a matter of months, and the fact that over 50% of those are coming from the high school, which is our newest school in the district. And then also you take into consideration when that work could conceivably be done, that we need to be doing that during a summertime. So I think it does put a little urgency on this particular issue as a priority for capital outlay spending, and that's why I feel comfortable moving forward.
One of the
Looking at these energy bills, my word, there's definitely some
Oh,
savings.
absolutely.
There's definitely a lot of opportunity there.
Big time.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how deep, I'm going to say, in the weeds I wanted to get on this, but since you asked the question you asked, part of the software that we're looking at, and they all do it differently, but one of the things that any of them will do that I can think of will visit your facilities, they'll walk through the facilities, they'll do what they call a facility survey. You can call it a condition study. There's a bunch of different acronyms that different people use. But essentially, they're going to look at your roof. They're going to look at your envelope. They're going to look at your windows. They're going to look at your HVAC system. They're going to make sure you don't have any, outdated electrical panels, for example. So they will bring someone in. I might do, if I were part of that team, I might look at the HVAC, but they'd also bring in maybe an electrical engineer to look at the electrical side. They'll bring in an architect to look at the roof and the windows and the envelope. at that point, there will be an expense, okay? So, and I don't know what it might be, maybe there won't be, but you're getting into once you've signed a contract or once you've agreed to work with, not signed a contract, agreed to work with them, this is how you proceed. But it's, that part of that whole process is to identify whether the roof at again, O'Laughlin is a bigger priority than the HVAC system at the high school. We're not spending any of the capital outlay yet. We're trying to give you the tools to figure out how to spend the money that you do have. I hope I explained that right.
I definitely like the idea and concept, you know, I mean, because it is hard sitting here and getting updates from Rusty and everything else, and I know, at least in the back of my mind, several times, it's like, okay, is this the most pressing need? You know, I mean, that's what I'm being told, but I mean, and what I don't want to have happen is, yeah, we're going to fix this, and then tomorrow this breaks, and,
right.
You know, and then we're sitting there going, where's the money going to come from for that? And so, I mean, I love what would happen in the realm of, you know, we get these RFPs and we just say, we can't afford to do anything.
You have the right. I even think that's written in there.
Been moved by Board Member Fox.
Second?
Seconded by Board Member Rankin. Any further discussion? Guess we had all of our discussion. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thanks for this
Thank
additional
you.
material as well. This is great stuff.
Sorry I didn't get that in
That's
the
okay.
packet.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the construction management at risk. I think that's just more of discussion as far as utilizing the services of construction management at risk, or the CMAR, to oversee the construction and renovation of projects of a bond issue, if we go forward with that. So,
I would say from the last meeting, last week, I've made some contacts. You end up having, it's fun in some ways to call the other school districts around the state who have been very involved in construction projects. They're very open to end up sharing their relationships, working relationships with architects, construction management at risk, and in this particular case, I was given plenty of information in the last week. I think easily there's quite a number. I mean, in the state, when you're talking about going from what we've identified when we talked about architects and what we were really looking for in that regard, I feel like that was even a shorter list. Talking about CM at risk, I think it's a longer list of individuals that can do a very good job. I feel very comfortable in identifying at some particular point 4 that could be interviewed. The difference with the interview there, although we would interview them, I'm certain of that, the issue is more a matter of the state is involved with CM at risk as of 3 years ago. They have to put together a, oh my God, what's the term, a grid? A rubric, thank you very much. A rubric. There's a rubric that has to go, and the state sends it back, which I gather is in pretty good time, maybe in a week's time, and they are involved in identifying who is to be selected to work with the district. So it's a little bit different than the architectural firm selection, but I would say that still in line with that. I'm not in a mode of saying that we need to move on that even tonight. But I just wanted to have it here to identify if there's more discussion, talk on it. I don't think there's any talk. I mean, since I've been here, I think my first day coming to work was a matter that this was set. We're going to end up having a CM at risk, you know. So that's not been a discussion item as to whether yay or nay on that. The issue is more about timing, more about where are we at in this scheme of things as far as our next step for a special board meeting for interviews for that as well. And I think that could happen at any time you are wanting that to happen.
One of the questions I have is, I agree that I think we are all intent on pursuing this. Do we need to wait at all based on the progression of the next bond election? Is there a certain time period that we should be shooting for closer to the stages of the bond development campaign process? Or can we go ahead and get this done?
Your question, from what I gather in talking to others, it's done a myriad of ways. So it's, to end up saying it's one particular way, we know that it can be a matter. You can hire an architectural firm, and the architectural firm can be involved and perhaps helpful, in the selection of a CM at risk. Some of our discussion at an earlier time was a matter, I think it was, where we wanted to be more in control of both of those particular positions, where we select the architectural firm and we select the construction or the CM at risk. And that doesn't mean that both have to be done on the same timeline. One could definitely be confirmed, and the other one could be a month, 2 months later. This is not something that has to be done before the end of this semester. It could be at the front end of next semester. I hate to be wishy-washy, but that's truly the answer. It's not a matter that there is an answer that is the right answer. It can work either way, a variety of ways.
But we can't do it too early. There's no risk of doing it too early.
I don't believe so.
Even from a state standpoint?
Oh, no.
Do it whenever you want to.
Okay.
I will say that the earlier that you have a construction manager on to assist you with estimating and helping out verify the picture, so that when you do go out to a bond vote, you have some real numbers and you're confident in those numbers.
Anybody have any other questions on that?
I don't really have a question, but I would be of the opinion that continue to move forward with the interview process, just as we were doing with the architects, and keep the ball rolling and start soliciting those companies to come visit with us.
Well, Mandy, even in that case, ball rolling could be, when we're having 3 Mondays in a row of board meetings, and then trying to have another special board meeting set up sometime. I don't know when that would be. So if the board is agreeable, if it seems like we want to keep moving on this, I would make the attempts to create another special board meeting, if it's possible, in November or December for this purpose. And I know I'm saying 2 months there, but it really could be a 2-month period to try to figure out a date that would actually work.
I would be okay with that.
Okay. Then I don't think that's a motion, that's just a matter of direction that I would continue to work on that then. Okay.
Very good. Any other questions on the CMAR? Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Ron. Next item on the agenda is the architect presentations, and obviously we had the special board meeting on October 17th, and this is just basically to review or answer any questions, I think, that anybody may have had on that.
Yeah, again, not a matter of any intention for action, don't want any action at this point. The matter is open discussion. We had 3 firms that came in and did a presentation last Monday. I felt very pleased, excited about all 3 of them. I am still in the mode that I believe that any one of them would do an excellent job, for what we're looking at for the near future. Question might be, as far as still identifying or trying to consider, if not going to the sites that they've actually worked at, but as far as their offices and taking that effort to go there, Kansas City, Wichita, trying to find 2 particular dates and making such a visit, whether it be myself, whether it be 1, 2 other board members that would be able to. The value that could be gained there, I'm still with the thought that there is some, but I also know that there ends up being quite complicated in trying to make that happen. And I'd like for, I guess, a little discussion to see the merit of that and if it's, if there is worth there. So I'll throw that out.
I kind of question the value as well, and I didn't know if it would be more advantageous to go see some of their finished work, like go to a different location of where they completed a project versus their offices, so to speak. See firsthand rather than pictures.
Okay.
I don't have a desire to go to their office. Okay, that's just I'm not interested in that.
And I think what we could do is basically, John possibly send an email out and we can see if we have any interest from any of the other board members, depending on schedules, which I know that was something we were working on just to see. And if so, we can kind of go from there. And if not, we can evaluate it with, if it's something where you make a trip or whatever the case may be.
And maybe consider, because I also feel the same way, that I'd like to see some of the finished products, because we don't all have to go to all things equally.
Oh, that's exactly true. I mean, it's one thing to take the time to go, but they have just about the virtual tours that you can end up arranging and being able to see could be available for any of the board members to be able to see. The only, when you're considering the one architectural firm in Wichita, you go down to Wichita, you could see many different projects in that area, okay? Whether it's their office or the project, you could, because that's the area. You go to another one, Hollis and Miller in Kansas City area, the same kind of situation. You talk about the other DLR, you end up having, you have projects there as well as some in the western Kansas, but you have that possibility. So whether it's office and surrounding area close by, I think that works for all of them. But for one of the firms, definitely, you have that western Kansas piece of Garden City, Dodge City, Liberal, Salina, that also are linked into that one particular firm. So there's a variety of ways to do it. It's just, one thing I'm trying to get across is, I do not think we're in a hurry to hire an architectural firm. I do think we need to be deliberate. I think there needs to be more investigation, okay? Not just sitting and not just not doing anything, but there needs to be more investigation of gathering information to help us determine who is the pick for us, of those three. I don't know if I care greatly which direction the board wishes to go, but I think we need more than just that presentation of last Monday.
Agree.
Yeah. In my mind, and maybe I'm off here, but there's a bunch of projects that have been performed. We've got those contacts just like we would for a reference, so to speak, so we can get the firsthand opinion from those that they've done work for. We can go and look at the finished product. We can do virtual tours that will show us an infinite amount of projects that they've worked on and completed. And I guess, in my mind, would it be that much different than, say, the process that we put a superintendent through to hire a new superintendent? You've interviewed, you look at the background, you look at the references, you find out as much as you can. So I guess, yeah. No, I don't think it's probably in our best interest to start jet setting all over Kansas and spending a bunch of money to check. So we would need to be very efficient if we were to
Right.
move out.
That's the whole idea, is if this could be squeezed down, efficient enough, and gathering, again, it could be a variety of things. It can be virtual tours that are available to us. It could end up being a couple visits, but could be tied within 1 day or 2 days of being able to do that. But those are things that I'd like to be able to get organized and be done in in November. It'd be great to be able to have that done in November. open to the ideas, and maybe the ideas is just a variety. Maybe what I'm hearing is just try to do several different things and get that back to the board. One thing that could be done immediately is probably the virtual tours, because I do believe they're available, just a matter of those firms giving us access to that.
And
being
those could be
able
done
to-
at everybody's leisure as well, so it would
That's
probably
right.
fit into schedule a little better too.
Well, and John, I know
We can
you
split
started
up and
with-
ask.
That's how it
Okay.
started with some of these, is to talk to the superintendent.
Right.
In many of these districts, but that is the piece for me that I'm most interested in. I'd really like to get on the phone
Yeah.
and have a discussion with somebody.
And the reason why I know that that seems like that should help you decide, but I promise you, the number that I talked to all gave about the same kind of message of saying, I would never pick another architectural firm. This is the best we've ever, I mean,
Right.
I got the kind of message that you might hear from any one of them of just, and because that, and they believe that. I mean, it truly is their relationship that they have with them at this time. But although I know you may think that will be helpful, you may be disappointed in the end as far as, because I think you'll hear the same from each one of them in this particular case. They're very good firms. All three of them do very good work. You have great loyalty when we have repeat work. You know, they're identifying the repeat work that's up there. That's real. They really do end up linking into different districts. And let's just put it this way. Let's say that this district does move ahead, have a project that is extremely successful. This whole town is happy with it. 3-4 years from now, everybody's just saying, this is amazing. I mean, what was done is amazing for the dollars that was done, and we're so happy with it. Okay? 15, 20 years from after that point, if you're back in the mode of going, well, we need to consider something else, who are you going to think of immediately? You know, the person that ended up, or that firm that ended up making you happy. I mean, a whole community. You're going to go back to probably the same CM at risk too, you know, that you had before too. You're just going to go back to what really worked for you the time before.
Then where would we find the value? Because if you're saying that those conversations may not be as helpful, well, that would be the same with a virtual tour. I mean, it's not like one of them is going to have a virtual tour that shows a bunch of junk. I mean, everything is going to look gorgeous. Everything is going to look per what the districts wanted. So then where would we find value?
Well,
if we need to go farther than the interview process, what would you recommend then?
I'll just say that my past experience, I did find value in visiting their offices, Josh.
Why?
Organization
Organization.
of their particular firm, as far as how do they have it broken out, who is responsible for what, just a matter, how do they end up having their working mechanism within their particular firm, and how do they explain it as they go around and describe what they're going to do for you.
You saw a lot of variance
I did.
from one company to another?
I did. But that was a different project. That was 8 years ago.
So, okay, then if we could narrow that down, because I see, hey, USD 49 is coming to town. And my mind would automatically imagine, hey, they got a major bond issue on the back looming in the darkness.
Mhm.
We're going to put our best foot forward. So I guess in my mind, I would think, and I'm asking you seriously, or what makes one different from another then?
Well, one doesn't put their best foot forward. I'm just saying, if you could eliminate one, I mean, if you have three, you could eliminate one perhaps, just because of that particular function of going out and seeing what their organization seems like, you know, on the inside. I don't know if it's, and I hate to say it that way, because I don't know if the selection's a matter of process of elimination or trying to pick the best one. But lots of times individuals, when you're in that process, do try to, I think that's a natural, where you end up going, okay, we have three very good individuals. Is there one that could be eliminated? And then you have two that you're working from. I mean,
And I would assume probably everybody sitting here probably did some of that even at the presentation, probably in their head, based off of.
Yes.
So
That's true.
for right or wrong.
I agree.
But this is our open dialogue, right?
Right.
So if all three companies have got such happy customers, such happy repeat business, then I guess, again, how they get from point A to point B, I mean, point B is what you want, so. I
And
don't know.
Josh, let me help you with this too. I really, really do believe you could roll the dice and you'll be happy with this, with who's picked. These three firms, all three of them, would do an excellent job. Okay? I really do believe that. And I know you're in the point of saying, well, if that's the case, then why do we put more effort into this? Well, because it is a relationship too. You may be coming down to just who would you rather work with? They'll end up doing a good job, but who's going to communicate best with you? Who do you end up having the best feel, as far as working with over the next 3-4 years in that particular case? So, and we truly are trying to make sure that this is understood to the public, that this is a very important decision.
It just seems like a lot of money to load up and go visit everywhere. It's just
Well,
hard to-
when you do say a lot of money, I don't think it has to be an expensive venture in doing that. I think it could be arranged where it's not. But that's on my shoulders to see if we can arrange that and make it very inexpensive and yet still gather information that would help.
And I would say from my perspective, either our accreditation process or interview process is that though things look good on paper, there's still that face-to-face or even talking to a secretary or somebody like that will often tell you things that nobody else will. There's those off-record conversations that can inform you a lot. That's part of our process of doing accreditation. I mean, yeah, everybody looks good on paper. Or when we bring them in and we meet with them, we break bread with the people, and it's like, man, I just do not want to be with this person for the next 4 to 5 years. and our relationship, well, it's
Sure.
true.
Yeah.
But our
Oh,
relationship, these people are
I
4 to
understand.
5
I
years.
understand that.
You can get a lot from their culture and just their work environment. It's just seeing the interaction of their people, I would assume, too.
Yeah.
Do the people look generally happy to be there, or they're all scowled faces?
Or you ask the
Well,
Sarah.
those are extremes. I mean, we know that all three companies are excellent. So the chances that we're going to dig out skeletons in the closet, are going to walk into this great sweatshop type environment. I mean, those really don't pertain to this conversation.
And it's not really the skeletons, it has to come back to collegiality, because this is a multi-year relationship. And if there's somebody that in their staff that's just going to grade against me, I'm not sure that that's the firm that I want to work with necessarily. And because this is a major commitment.
And even when you look at like a football game or a basketball tournament, you may have the best, state or league, whatever. You have the best teams going, but still somebody is first, somebody's second, somebody's third.
Yeah, but a snapshot, I don't want to spend a whole lot more time on this, but a snapshot in time versus a 10, 12, 15, 20-year relationship, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, if you're going to continue that relationship, then, because you're still talking about kind of a sales tactic. So
Sure.
to load up and go and visit, I mean, I've walked into so many places where, oh man, this is it. This is the one. And then, wow, 2 years into it, I couldn't have been more wrong. So this is our open dialogue. We throw a little devil's advocacy here. If the board and superintendent, if you think that going and visiting is the best way to get an idea of what we need to do, then hey, I'm all for that. To me, it's probably a little harder for me to think that that is the most telling. I'm not arguing. I'm just saying I have a difficult time thinking that is the most telling indicator. I think it should be possibly a collection of everything. So that's what was talked about.
And I will try to get you a collection of, maybe not everything, but more.
But I don't think it should all have to fall on, I think we should be able to split up, check references, get our own opinions from the people. I don't
Agreed.
think everything should fall on your shoulders per se. The efficiency and the spending portion, yeah, I would ask that we come up with,
Okay.
and maybe it's not as bad as what I think it's going to be.
Okay.
Maybe you'll blow me away.
Okay.
Just like I expect all of these meetings when we go to their facilities would be the same thing.
Any other questions on the architectural presentation?
I will move forward with seeming direction that I'm being given.
Okay.
We're clear.
Crystal
Well,
clear.
I got it.
Well, but there is one thing I do, if there is a way to clarify some of them, is that all of them talk about their front end helping us out, getting a bond issue through and passed. How does that factor in with cost differentials between the different firms? Because, I mean, we did see some, I guess I would say even extremes and
Actually,
differences that.
Paul's right on target with that, because basically, in the end, it could be the dollar that ends up making the decision. You know, it could be
Yeah.
a matter when you're looking at, okay, what is the cost going to be for these different firms? It may be a matter that you're going just basically because if all three have equal kind of view within the state, why wouldn't you go with the best buy? You know, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, because, and it was, to me, the part I had trouble, or not trouble, but trying to say, well, that's a heck of a pre-bond campaign package, and that one is due, and maybe that one's not so much. And then I was starting to run, well, how much is that extra service going to add to the overall cost, and then possibly cut down on what we feel we could bear as a district to renovate, or to update, renovate, replace, whatever it may be with our physical structure. So anyway, that's something to try to figure it out for me.
One other comparison tool I would like, because of the time that I've been on the board, is how much we have spent with the past architectural firm and what their services were to include with that pricing. That'd be helpful.
We could share that at a later date as well. That'd be good.
And do we have any others that are looking to interview with us besides the three that we had in?
No.
Okay. All right. It's only 3 visits, not, okay.
Very good. Thanks, John. Next item on the agenda is student fees.
This as well is not intended to be an action item. This ends up being more from the standpoint of continued discussion. There were questions that came up at the last meeting. We had decided we wanted to talk on this now versus a matter in April, May, the end of the year in preparation for the next school year. Some of the discussion here, it's important to end up seeing that the reduction amount at the bottom of that sheet identifies that each one of the $5 reduction for that first workbook material fee is about $10,000, $9,900. The change in the high school fee of $5 or middle school equates to about $3,700 and $3,300. The amount identified of reducing, if it was only $10 for that workbook material fee going from $135 to $125, there'd be a savings of close to $20,000. And the reduction of the high school, middle school, going from $50 to $45 was that $3,700 and $3,300. Looks very minimal. It could be more. That's what was thrown out on, probably more because of the information we gained too or the bad information that we gained recently with the insurance issue. We are trying very hard with and do plan on making the changes too with the home and school of having less money that's going to be tied to them, which means more money from the general fund. This was going to be more money from the general fund. The insurance is more money from the general fund. So although there was the intention of being as generous as possible in the cuts on this, this is what's being thrown out, open for discussion, no intention for, like I said, for an action item. It's more discussion, and I'm glad we're so far in advance to have the discussion right now with it.
So were the $5 costs proposed by you, or is this also working with administrators?
We discussed it in the principals meeting this
All right.
last week. So yes, they were part of the conversation.
And so is the intent that if we do reduce the fees, to make up that difference out of general fund?
But
So that's the-
we would have to,
Would have to.
whatever is not going to be covered, yes. I mean, it would be nice in some ways. The ideal setting would be that $423,400 there at the top. Really, it would be nice if that didn't exist at all, that was all general fund.
I may be taking this the opposite direction of where you were trying to go originally with it, but when I look at the HHS fee and the examples that are given for some of the things that pays, and also the HMS fee, I wonder, as a parent, I mean, I could look at that and say, well, my child didn't take the AP exam, and couldn't they bring their own headphone? And what's the student subscription? And what if my child doesn't participate in any of these activities out of town that require lodging?
And that was the discussion that the principals participated in this last week, but it really came up of saying that the variety is, we were trying to identify of saying, what is the list? Well, the list is so long. I mean, it ends up being such a variety that exists, the difficulty of, to believe that there is a student that's not linked to any of those fees is hard to fathom. There are some that would be much more because they're much more involved perhaps, but it involves so many different areas that's why it was left as it is, Sarah. That was, never got much deeper than that discussion at both middle school and high school. They both were in the same kind of area in that discussion.
My guess would be it covers so much that at some point in time, it has to touch each student at least. I mean, some may need more than others. but-
And I have no doubt, but where I'm headed with this is, regardless of if it's 5 things or 30 things that those fees are covering, do we need to dig down a little bit, look at all the different pieces that are being covered by that, and say, is there any other way to pay for some of those? I mean, we had a healthy and deep discussion about pay-to-play a year and a half ago. And we dug down into the athletic, what, at the high school, what the athletic boosters and the booster clubs are supporting, that sort of thing. Do we need to head down that route again so that we can, again, to meet our overall objective of trying to reduce our fees?
I don't think you're reducing it, you're just changing who's paying for it.
We may be, but it's the difference from an upfront cost, versus maybe some increased fundraising in some other departments. I don't know, without digging down in and making sure we understand all the pieces that are flowing into that, I don't feel like we can have a good discussion about it. I do know that since I've been on the board, I watched that fee double at both the middle school and the high school. And I think that probably where that came from is that supply lines and other pieces had been cut, from what our schools were getting to pay for other things, so they needed that. So I'm not saying that all these things aren't valuable activities and that they're needed, but again, if our goal is to try to reduce these fees at enrollment, then it seems like we need to go down that path of trying to better understand every line that's being covered by these.
Do you mean as far as digging into, so from this list, you don't think it is specific enough?
Well, okay, so right now, if we just say, it just feels like whatever decision we would make from here would be arbitrary, right? We'd say, okay, well, we know it's going to affect at least the 4 items that are listed here if we reduce the HHS fee by $5, but we feel like we need to do that. But I have to question, you know, is $5 even enough? I mean, when we doubled it 2 years ago, what justified that doubling?
$1.3 billion or $1.3 million deficit.
Those two weren't tied though. It was because when I came on and that was increased, it was after that 1.3 had been identified and the cuts were made.
Well, we had the shortfall that we were facing the following year.
That was the reason the fees were.
The fees went up to offset our deficit. They're directly linked to what we were facing. The 1.3 started we covered it. Then you've got the rising costs of other things as you move into the next year. You're still negative because you just barely got your nose is sticking out of the water. So the fees were
Just to build the.
yeah, because we didn't have money in general fund to support a lot of what we were actually doing.
And Sarah, I do understand what you're saying. But I still would say that perhaps the solid number is more of an issue than identifying, what that all includes. Because it's still a matter that it's covering things that are needed at school, that's that student fee. You could break it down, you could try to identify all of that, but it still comes down to a fee that's trying to end up assisting with lack of funds in a school system. If the real answer I still end up seeing is if $5 is not enough, then it's $10 less. It's a matter of looking at it that perhaps as a solution to what we're talking about, than perhaps of trying to specifically break it down and identify the tremendous variety of things that are covered by that.
And really the only one on there, the kindergarten fee was the only one that we said. The other ones at the time when they were voted in, it was basically discussed that they would basically be revisited each year or revisited again to see then if we could lower those back down, which I said at the time when they were voted in that probably wouldn't happen. But the kindergarten fee was really the only one that basically was talked about. The only way that it would basically be removed is if the state ever went back to paying for full day kindergarten. So the rest of them, yes, they went up. The work fee, for instance, material fee went up substantially. I think it went up twice what it was. It was like $60. So, yeah. Like I said, I think John's right, though. At the end of the day, I think we just need to go in and whatever it is we decide to cut off of that, whether we make that 135, for sake of argument, 120 or whatever, in an effort to start moving in the right direction or whatever it is, it's one of those deals. If that's the case, then we're going to have to figure out where to come out with $30,000 extra or whatever the case is to offset that. So
I was a lot more excited to look at this before Tracy dropped her bomb.
Yes.
I know, right?
Well, and I want to make sure you understand again, not the intention of a decision tonight.
No, but I would rather have the discussion now than wait until the month before we have to make this decision. And
I mean, if we could only make an incremental change, it still reflects what we've indicated and valued with the 500K plus.
And that's my point. I think even if we can just start making a small dent in it, it may not be a lot, and especially the fact that we're coming up with a nice chunk of change, $560-some thousand additional. That definitely makes things, as Josh said, it was a lot more appealing to look at peeling a little bit more off of that before this, but
Before the meeting was good. Yeah.
I think if we can at least do a little bit, and certain ones, i.e., as an example, the Hayes High School technology fee, $50, it's going to be tough to adjust that because that pretty well offsets, if I remember right, the cost of the surface warranties and everything else was approximately $38,000 or something like that. So you're going to be right in that neighborhood, which that's basically what it was put in place for, was to cover that type of stuff. So, so a couple of those fees, I don't know how much you're going to be able to move on or adjust much without taking away from what they're actually there for. But technically that same argument could be used for all of those. So,
but even if a person has 2 children and 3 children at the high school, middle school age, that starts to at least 10 to 15 bucks less.
I was going to say, even if you took $10 or $15 off of one of those, 20 or 40 or $20 or $30 is better than nothing. So.
Now, I do want to point out, when you're mentioning that all of you do understand that a good percent, I never did, maybe half of that 500 and some thousand is linked to retiree insurance, which means over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, that will not be part of it. I mean, we will see that money again.
Right.
It's just a matter that
This year, though, it's...
the next few years,
Yeah,
actually.
it's gonna be tough to make
We
a
still
budget.
are going to be putting that much money towards a group that's not, it's not the employee group, it's the retirement group.
And do we have much hope of relief from the state of moving to a funding formula that would reflect?
That's
No,
funny.
okay, forget I said that.
Did you really just say that?
It's funny every time you
It's
say
getting
it,
late,
Paul.
isn't it, Paul?
Yeah, I figured I said that.
Well, and the other thing I think we need to keep in mind too, I mean, while that may not be the case with the retiree and the other stuff, I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's when the next time the health insurance benefits go up. They will go up again. I mean, that's a given. You know, we've been lucky in years past where it may have not been, you know, a huge increase, but you look across the state and whether it's the, you know, the stuff with schools you're seeing, whether it's the exchange. I mean, there's a lot of states this year that are seeing, you know, 40% increases in a lot of that stuff. So, I mean, it could get nasty the next couple of years with the health insurance stuff at the rate that things are going up, so.
I would suggest